Hey guys, welcome to Meet the Family Mondays. And last week we talked about our adoption of Johanna Grace. She was the first adoption that we did, and she is from China. On that video, we really talked about why we felt like God was calling us to adopt in the first place and what that process looked like. So today I'd like to talk to you about our second adoption, which was with David, Sammy, and Karissa, and they are from Ethiopia. So we adopted Johanna when she was just 18 months old from China, and that was in 2005. We went for about a year, and then we started thinking about adopting again. But we found out we couldn't adopt from China anymore because we already had 5 kids in our home, and at that time that was the limit for China. The other programs that were available usually required you to go overseas for about 2 weeks or even a month, and we really didn't feel like we could do those programs because we already had 5 kids and we really didn't want to be gone from them, for that long of a period of time. So the kids and I kept looking at different things on the web about adoption and stuff. And, every once in a while we'd find somebody that needed to be adopted, and we kind of throw our name in the hat and, say, well, if God wants that to happen, then, they'll contact us and we'll go from there. And none of those ever came, to be, but me and the kids would usually have little meetings like, what do you think about this? And, then we kind of all gang up on Phil and try to get him to agree with us. And but Phil at that time was working for Pfizer, and they were having some layoffs. And he was really kind of concerned about adopting again just because of the financial cost, and also because of, just already having a family with 5 kids. So we just kept praying about it, and I found out in the fall of 2006 that our adoption agency, America World, out of McLean, Virginia, they opened up a new program to Ethiopia. And this program was really interesting because there was no limit to how many kids you could have in your home, and the travel was for only 1 week. And also you could adopt siblings or a couple of babies at one time. So I really thought that this would be our last adoption. So I thought that would be so awesome if we could get, 2 babies, and then that would complete our family. And, we talked about it a little bit, but still Phil was hesitant to have us start that process. So we just kind of kept praying about it, thinking about it, a little bit here, a little bit there. So at Christmas that year, he surprised me and gave me an envelope with a check in it that would start our adoption process for Ethiopia. So, we were all so excited. It was so great. And we started, of course, right away. And we asked for 2 babies, ages 3 and under. So we got all of our paperwork done in about 4 months or so, and we sent it to Ethiopia. And we just kind of waited because at that time, we weren't really sure when we would get a referral. So we knew it would be a little while. So we submitted our paperwork again in the spring, and then we're just waiting over the summer. And over the summer, there were, again, a couple of things that would come over the internet, like this, group needs adopting, and we'd always put our name in the hat, but we never heard from anybody, anything about those kids. About in the middle of the summer, we got a picture about a sibling group of 3, and their ages were about 2, 5, and 8, I think, at the time. And so, of course, we put our name in the hat. Like, if God wants that to happen, then, that's what we're going to do. And, but we never heard anything back from them. And so we just kind of, didn't think about it anymore. In the fall of 2006, Phil was on a work trip to San Diego, and I got to go with him. So we were there for about 4 or 5 days. And I think it was like the first day that we were there, while he was in a meeting, I got a email from our caseworker at America World, and she said, hey, I saw that you guys, were interested in the sibling group, and we think that you guys might be a really good match for them. And I will have to say that I was totally shocked. Like, I was not expecting that. And so, when we were going to adopt the 2 babies, that would make us a family of 7. And if we're a family of 7, then we could have all still rode in our Suburban, and that would work. For some reason, the jump from 7 to 8 just made a huge difference. And I was just like, oh my goodness, could we really do this? Like, 8 kids is like crazy. So, and they were a little bit older too. And so, she sent over their pictures and their information. And when Phil came back from his meeting, I'm like, you are never gonna believe what just happened. And so, of course, we opened the document together and we started looking through it. And if you remember during Johanna's video, I told you that God always has sent us some sort of sign that these are our kids. And so with Johanna, it was related to the ladybug. And for the 3 kids, it related to their name and their birthday. So when we got their file, David's name was actually Yoftahe, and that is his middle name today. And then Sammy's name was Samuel. And if you know anything about our family, we have a ton of Sams in our family. Phil's dad's name is Sam. His brother's name is Sam. We have a Samantha. She's our oldest daughter, and she was named after her grandfather. And his brother also has a son named Sam. So we already had 4 Sams in our family. So when we saw this kid's name was Samuel from Africa, we're like, what are the chances of that? It was just pretty crazy. And then the little girl's name was Bimnet, and that is Karissa's middle name now. So, it was just kind of funny and crazy. And then we looked at their birthdays, and David's birthday was March 9th. And so also, if you know a little bit about our families, we have the month of March is like birthday extravaganza. So we have Samantha, her birthday is March the 5th. Mine is March the 6th. Phil's is March the 7th. And then David's was March the 9th. And Rob's is March the 21st. So it was just kind of a couple of those, just, coincidences. But they also spoke to us like, I really think that this might be what God wants us to do. So luckily we were in San Diego. We said, let's not tell the kids. Let's just really think about it and pray about it for the rest of the time that we're in San Diego, and see, really what God wants us to do. So of course we had a lot of long talks and just about what this was going to mean. We probably had to buy a new car, and it was just, it just felt heavier and more than adopting 2 babies. So we went through that trip and we decided that, we really have to go home and talk to the kids about this before we even decided if we're going to do it or not, because it was such a big commitment. And the other thing was that David at that time was 8 years old, and our youngest biological kid was also 8 years old. And so even though she was a girl and he was a boy, we thought that that would help with the possible, competitiveness between those 2. We just really wanted to ask Michaela first about what she thought about having a brother that was the same age as her. So we came home, and literally, we came in the house, and Phil's like, hey, Michaela, let's go, why don't you go with me and let's go get some gas? So she was like, okay. And so they went out, and he told her first and said, I really need your honest opinion about this. Like, he's going to be actually a little bit older than you. They're about 7 months apart, and David is older than Michaela. And so he's like, I want to know what you really think about this. And she was like, Dad, I'm so excited because I'll finally have somebody to play with me. And if you know anything about Michaela, she is a people person and she loves to have fun. And so she was like so excited because she felt like all of her older siblings, you know, never wanted to play with her. And so to have a buddy, you know, the same age as her as a brother was just, she just thought that was amazing. So we got her okay, and then when they came home, you know, Phil told me, and then we sat down and talked with the other kids. And at that time, they were ages 15, almost 16. Samantha was almost 16, 15 to 8, I think. And so, you know, they were excited. They really didn't have reservations. And we really wanted them to understand and count the cost because, you know, we just knew it was going to have a huge impact on our family. So, you know, for a couple of days, we're like, you know, all worst case scenario, you're going to have to share your room, which isn't worst case scenario, but we were also like, you know, we're not going to be able to go on vacations because it's going to cost more money. And you might not always be able to go to your friend's house or play dates. And I mean, just about anything negative that we could think of, we talked about because we really wanted them to think through what we were about to do. So it was getting time that we needed to tell the agency, you know, what we were going to do. So I remember being in the car and, you know, us just going through the list again and, you know, just telling them what the cost was going to be as much as we knew what it was going to be. And they just said, stop, it's enough. We understand the cost and we really feel like that God is calling us to do this. So we want you to go ahead. We're great with whatever, you know, it means to adopt these 3 kids. So we started the paperwork again to adopt the 3. And we traveled in March of 2008 to Ethiopia. We brought Rob along with us. He was about 12 at the time. And we just thought that would be a great experience for him. And plus it would be a big help for us because, you know, of helping with the boys and entertaining them. And so he went with us. So when we got there, you know, we'd only ever adopted from China before. And like I said before, China is very scheduled. Your time is very scheduled. You know exactly what you're going to do on each day. And, you know, so Ethiopia was totally different. And which is, you know, it was good. So we got there and we had a couple of days where we were actually visiting some missionary friends that we knew there. And then we got in touch with our translator, the person that was helping us from AWAA there. And we got settled into our hotel and he was like, well, hey, you want to go meet your kids today? And we're like, excuse me, like today? And he's like, yeah, I'll pick you up in about an hour in front of the hotel. So we're like, okay, I guess we're doing this, you know? So we went with another family and went to the orphanage, and it was just crazy. So the orphanage is kind of like its own little compound there. And we went, the gates open and you go in, and then all the kids start coming to see who you are and what you brought them. And it was just kind of overwhelming. So, you know, we got with our 3 kids and, you know, but, you know, everybody else is around. And so you're playing with them and you're blowing bubbles and you're just on for a couple of hours. And, you know, I really tried to bond and connect with Karissa. She was about 2.5 at that time. And, you know, that first day went pretty well. But when we went back to the hotel, we were kind of somber. And I remember just going to bed and laying there with our eyes open thinking, oh my goodness, what have we done? Because it was truly overwhelming to just to kind of be thrown in at the very beginning and be met with so many kids and so many needs, and meeting our kids and trying to connect with them. And wow, I just remember just being totally overwhelmed. But God's grace is sufficient. And so the next day we got up, and that was the day that we were going to go meet them at the orphanage and bring them back to the hotel with us. And kind of how it works in Ethiopia at that time was it was a 1-week trip. They had already been adopted in our name about a month before. We gave power of attorney to somebody over there, and they went to court for us and adopted them in our name. So they were technically ours. We just had to do the paperwork for the embassy and that sort of thing that week. So the rest of the week was really, we took them back to the hotel with us, and it was really just bonding with them, trying to really just figure out life with 3 new kids. It was hard. It was really hard. Of course, there was a language barrier. David knew a little bit of English, not very much. They really wanted to please us, so anything that we would ask them, they would say yes, like, do you know how to swim? Because there was a pool outside, and they were like, yes. And so we took them out to this huge pool, and I think it was David almost drowned. And, Karissa, they weren't used to a lot of water, so Karissa would freak out putting her feet in any type of water. She was used to, just different things than what they experienced at the hotel. So there was lots of crying and, just fits and not understanding, and it was just kind of crazy. Every time we went to eat, Karissa would cry, and, people would be watching you, and it was really quite the experience. So after that week, we traveled home to the United States, and we got home. Phil's parents had just moved here not very long before that, and so they were here to help us out. And luckily, Pfizer had just instituted a new policy that even if you adopted, you could have paternity leave. And so Phil got to stay home with us. I think it was about 6 weeks, and that was just a godsend. We're so thankful for that. It was really, really overwhelming to have 3 kids, ages 2.5 to 9, and they didn't speak English, and we now had 8 children. Samantha had just turned 16 while we were in Ethiopia, so she just got her driver's license. And basically, her and Josiah just kind of started doing their own thing. And she had just landed a part in a musical that she was one of the main characters in. So she totally took responsibility and did that on her own, really, because it was just not possible for us to be very involved at that time. So, looking back, I really think it made our older kids grow up really quickly, but they were okay with that, and they also were such a huge help. They both got jobs, and so we didn't see them very much, and by the time they would get home at night around 10 or 11, we would usually still be up waiting for them, and they would just sit down and talk with us, and we could laugh. Those are special memories because, we would usually save dessert for those times, and we would drink coffee and just sit and laugh and talk. And I really think that got us through that year, because it was really, really a hard year. Not because the kids were bad or anything like that. It was just a lot. It took them, several months, of course, to learn English, or at least basic English, so that we could have some communication with them. And I don't remember a lot about that year. I do remember that it was just chaos. And so, luckily, our kids were great about it. Again, Michaela loved having a brother, And it was really sweet to see them. You know, she would just talk and talk and talk, and he would just listen. Whether he knew what she was saying or not, he just appeared to be listening to her. And it's pretty much, they've stayed true to that to this day, where she talks and he listens. And they are, you know, a special blessing as they are really good friends, and just have a really special kind of relationship between the two of them. But it was a crazy year. And so also, you know, we're very thankful for our church family. Our church family really surrounded us. They surrounded our kids, and our kids made some really good friends from our church family and from our extended family. And, you know, I don't think they ever really felt like outsiders. Everybody just really embraced them. And that's one thing I really, really love about our church, is it's very pro-adoption. And they just make it easy to bring, you know, kids from a different country in and make them feel welcome and special. And so, you know, kudos to Faith Bible Church in the Woodlands. So yeah, I mean, now David is 21, and he is just a super sweet guy. He does love the Lord and is pursuing a relationship with the Lord and trying to figure out exactly what God wants him to do. But, you know, he is walking with the Lord. Sammy is 18 now, and his story is been a little bit more difficult. And, you know, someday I might talk more about that. But it's a story that's still being written. And someday, hopefully, you know, him and I can do maybe tell our story together, and by God's grace. And Karissa is 14. She's in the 9th grade, and she's doing fantastic. She's a mover and a shaker, and, you know, I really feel like God can use her in amazing ways with her story. Thank you guys so much for listening. And again, if you have any questions about adoption, please let us know, and we'd be glad to help if we can with those questions. Also, the adoption agency that we used was America World Adoption Agency out of McLean, Virginia. And they have a lot of programs on their website with a lot of details about how to adopt, and just the specifics of adopting through different countries. I hope that this was helpful, and I hope you guys have a great week.